And we're live. So I started a live stream a little bit early today. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a bit of Q&A, and we're going to cover 10 Python GUI frameworks. Article that popped up. Figure we'll go through that. I got a couple of comments to make. This time I did a quick read because I learned my lesson from the last one. All right, so I'm just going to wait for people to show up. Right now I don't see anybody, but I would imagine that's going to change very soon. So I hope everybody is well during these COVID times. So I figured I'd do a few more lives since people are, I guess, stuck in their homes for the most part. So why not? Why not do a few more lives? Once again, I'm going to try to keep these under half an hour if I can. We'll see what happens. Lockdown, California. There you are. Yeah. We're close to that in Montreal here. We're close to that in Montreal. Especially where I live. I'm right in the core. Bonsoir, Monsieur Taibi. Comment ça va? J'espère que tout ça va bien avec toi. Watching from France. Hey, Mr. Diallo. Very cool, very cool. Greetings from Dallas, from Vienna. Very cool. All over the world. I like that. That's great. That's cool. I don't know. It still freaks me out that we get to communicate with people from all over the world like this. Michael, I appreciate you letting me know. Before I even have to ask, Michael is a mind reader, apparently. Egypt. Wow. Egypt. Uruguay. Very cool, very cool. All over the world. Canada. Canada, that's boring. Well, glad a fellow Canuck is watching. Very cool. Mr. Jiang. Texas, very cool. That's one of my next destinations, to head down to Texas. Specifically, San Antonio. Longueuil. Very cool. Longueuil is just off the island, right next to me. Currently at work. Hopefully I don't get caught watching this, and my build keeps crashing, by the way. What, Java, C++, C#, New Zealand, wow. How are we doing? 28 people. We usually get 200, 300, you know. But I'll wait till we get about 50 people, then I'll jump into the subject and do a little Q&A. It's 7:30 for me in the PM, so I don't want to be here too late, you know. I'll answer some questions. I want to get into web-based gambling, and I'm learning some Python frameworks, Django, Flask, still beginner. Will this be a good secure choice to create a truly random and safe from cheaters? You can do that with any language, dude. It comes down to how solid your coding is. But yeah, you could do it with Python. Michigan, not too far from Canada. I drove through Michigan about a year or so ago. I decided to take a road trip down to Chicago from here. Went to Buffalo, visited a friend. Ohio, visited some other friends and clients. Then went down to Chicago and booted up through Michigan on the way back to Ontario. Hello, Holly. How are you? Greetings from Buffalo, New York. I was just talking about Buffalo. I had buffalo wings in Buffalo. I had to do it when I was there. They were very good, by the way. There's some pub on the main drag that has like some Harry Potter type of character in the front. It was a very cool place. Enjoyed it. From Algeria. Very good. Hey, Stef, any advice on how to celebrate my 170th birthday? I'll let you know. I'm about to hit that pretty soon, so I'll let you know what I'm going to do. C++, there you go. Yeah. Stefan, have you heard of Fast API? No, I have not. Sorry. From Algeria. It's 1:27 a.m., I suppose. 1:30 a.m. Having a hard time sleeping, so I figured I'd watch Stef. Cool. Yeah, guaranteed to put you asleep. Why is CSS harder than HTML? Because you're doing a lot more with CSS in terms of the control, right? You're laying out and you can animate and so forth. CSS is also, the way we designed it was not the most intuitive, in my opinion. That's okay. Don't worry, you'll get through it. Do you need a degree to become an IT consultant? Which skills does one need? No, you don't need a degree. You need to have just good understanding of architectures, have very good communication skills so you can communicate your ideas. Yeah, that's good. Hungary, very cool. All right, what we got here? Okay, but JavaScript can be hacked in the browser. Yeah, you wouldn't put any business logic in your browser. No. You put it on the server. But yeah. That again, it's architecture more than anything else. You inspired me to continue with Python. Thanks. Hey, no problem, Rob. Yeah, just keep working at it. When you hit roadblocks for anything in life, just realize that that's a good thing, because that means you're breaking new ground, you're doing new things. The worst thing you could possibly do is not to challenge yourself and not to break new grounds. Like I had retired quite young, and I spent 10 years drinking coffee and doing all kinds of stuff that people think is great, but I got so bored of it. It was, I pulled all my hair out. I used to have a full head of hair. I pulled it all out from being all bored. So yeah, if you reach complacency, that's not a good thing. Trust me, I know it doesn't feel good when you're getting pressure, but once you plow through it mentally, and it's mostly just mental, it's just conceived of, it's not real, you'll feel great on the other end. So keep going. Bonjour de Varennes. I guess that's a part of France. I'm not sure where that is. My apologies. Could the white space in Python be considered an example of user control? Could the white space in Python, user control? I don't know what you mean by an example of user control. If you don't know, white space is used to delineate chunks of code. I'm trying to avoid jargon here, code blocks and so forth. I'm not a big fan of that, in all honesty. I much prefer using curly braces, which you see done in C++ and Java, and C# and PHP, etc., JavaScript. How can we print money in 2021? Well, apparently, if you would have bought Bitcoin 5-7 years ago, you'd be printing money today. More skills, dude, more skills. Dallas, Texas, very cool. Bosnia, fantastic. Germany, well, I like this, great international audience. Stefan, how often do you use Python hints in real projects? You should use hinting all the time. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Yeah, so you know, I'm not an active Python coder these days. I'm not an active coder. I run my things now. I just don't have time. You use whatever you need to use in a language based on the particular situations. That's not something I've really thought of, you know. 21st Stage joined the suite today, including PA. Supreme Court has just accepted case. Sup, Stefan? 21st Stage suite today, including PA. Oh, this is about the elections down there. Oh boy, yeah. That's pretty messy stuff. It's a process. I wish you good luck with all that. I'm Canadian, so I don't have a dog in the fight. So to avoid any arguments, I'm going to not discuss any politics, because people go nuts with that. And I have my political point of view, there's no question, but I just don't want to. I want to keep it nice and happy here. Yo, Stefan, always good to see you. You too, man, Sergeant. I recognize your avatar. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. A CS student with interest in mobile device, is it okay if I start with Flutter? Why not? Flutter's cool. I mean, the user being told what to do by the program. I think you're talking about Python whitespace. The whitespace in Python is just used to delineate code blocks, right? It's the equivalent of curly braces. I prefer curly braces personally. We have reached 50. Oh, okay. Okay, let me just jump into it very quickly. It's a quick article, and then we'll get into other stuff afterwards. We'll do some more Q&A afterwards. All right, so let me zoom into this a little bit. Ooh, so everybody can see. Top 10 GUI frameworks for developers. Best Python GUI frameworks for building interactive GUIs. So the author is Claire Da Costa. So let's see what happens. This is a statement from Guido van Rossum. This is the guy who created Python. So let's see what he has to say. The joy of coding Python should be in seeing short, concise, readable classes that express a lot of action in a small amount of clear code. That is pretty descriptive of of Python. There's no question about that. Okay. Not in reams of trivial code that bores the reader to death. So yeah, you always want to look to make your code as simple, as easy as possible. There's no question about that. Okay, graphical user interface, or GUI, is more commonly known as one of 3 main cornerstones of any application, with the other 2 being security, performance. All right, it's kind of basic stuff. Due to Python's increasing popularity, smooth learning curve, and widespread adoption in the real world, it makes for a compelling programming language to pick up in 2020. It's amongst the most popular out there. It's either number 1 or number 2 or number 3. So yeah, you can't go wrong learning Python. Of course, you can't go wrong learning just about many languages out there. Soon after getting a firm grasp on the basics of Python programming, the next challenge beginners face is building a user interface. Hey, that rhymes. Luckily, there are a lot of frameworks for Python that specialize in helping developers build breathtaking yet highly intuitive user interfaces with modern applications. That would be interesting for me to see. I don't know what the stats are in terms of how many people use Python for GUI development, for programs that have a GUI. Rather, I am under the impression, and I haven't looked at stats though, I am under the impressions that Python is used for back-end operations, AI, data processing, server automation. It can be used, of course, for GUI. There's several toolkits that we'll look at. But as far as I understand, that's not really its major use case. All right. Did you know, according to Stack Overflow, Python is the most preferred language, which means that the majority of developers use Python? No, I don't. No. Let's scroll down. What is a GUI? So it's a graphical user interface. It's the visual component that you see, whether it be a web app or et cetera, et cetera. So Python does have GUI frameworks, basically tools for you to use to build graphical user interfaces, think of windows and dialog boxes and stuff. So let's see what he has to say. Best Python GUI frameworks for developers. Focusing on perfecting the user interface is a good thing, but as much important it is to offer best possible user experience. Delivering it without spending absurdly a huge amount of time and resources is equally important. Python has loads of frameworks for developing GUIs, and we have gathered some of the most popular GUI frameworks in our list below. So some of them I have heard of personally, some of them I haven't, so we'll just take a quick look at them. You'll be able to look these up if you're interested in this stuff. PyQt5, developed by Riverbank Computing. PyQt5 package is built around the Qt framework, which is cross-platform framework used for creating a plethora of applications for various platforms. PyQt5 package includes a detailed set of bindings for Python based on the latest version 5 of the Qt application framework. Similar to Qt5 framework, PyQt5 is also fully cross-platform. By leveraging the power of PyQt5, developers can build applications for platforms like Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, and more. Oh, that's interesting. When it comes to creating GUIs, PyQt5 Arsenal offers impressive Qt GUI and Qt Designer module, which provide numerous visual elements that the developer can implement with simple drag and drop. Of course, the option of creating these elements by code also exists, allowing you to create both small-scale and large-scale applications with ease. Python's modularity trickles down to PyQt5 in the form of extensions that give you a lot more features than just GUI building. If you like what you see here, you can give PyQt5 a try with the command line pip install Qt5. So Python has the ability for you to just install, pip is the Python package manager, allows you just to install packages, which are basically extended functionality to the core language pretty easily. So there's even tutorials on YouTube you can find. tkinter. I actually teach a little bit of tkinter in my beginner's Python course. But again, once you learn, Once you learn how to build user interfaces, to move from one package to the next will be pretty easy. All right, let's jump back in. tkinter. Often referred to as the go-to GUI toolkit by a majority of Python developers, tkinter was created to equip modern developers with a standard interface to the tk GUI toolkit with its Python bindings. In TK Inter's world, most of the visual elements that we're familiar with are called widgets, and each of these widgets offer a different level of customability. TK Inter comes backed into current Python installers for all major operating systems. Comes backed into, yeah, and offers a host of commonly used elements that we're sure you must be familiar with. Some of these elements have been listed below. The frame, which is the structure of your application. When you think of a frame, you can just think of the GUI frame, like the main window, if you will. You got buttons, you got check buttons, you got labels for labeling your buttons, you got dialogues for uploading and downloading files. You got a canvas for drawing and painting things like graphs and plots. You got, actually in JavaScript too, as I teach, you also have a canvas as well. So you can create a canvas in your web page with JavaScript, poof, and you can draw and you can do animations and all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, that's cool. The video coming in clearly for you guys, let me know. I hope so. I'm looking at the comments on the side here. All right, Kiwi. I've actually heard of this, never used it though. Written with a mix of Python and Python, Kiwi is an open source GUI framework for building some of the most intuitive user interfaces, encompassing multi-touch applications that implement natural user interface. A NUI, a natural user interface, is a kind of interface where the user naturally learns about various interactions provided by the user interface while they're usually kept invisible. That I would have to see. With Kiwi, the interface designer can code once and deploy on multiple platforms. They're all cross-platform, while built-in support for OpenGL and ES2 allows them to use modern, powerful graphics and design techniques. All right, that's very cool. So you got some power. So WX Python, here's another one. WX Python is essentially a Python extension module that acts as a wrapper for the WX Widgets API. WX Python allows Python developers to create native user interfaces that add zero additional overhead to the application. Cross-platform capabilities of WX Python allow for deployment to platforms like Windows, macOS, Linux, Unix-based systems with little to no modifications. The developer duo later released Project Phoenix as the successor to WX Python. So I would probably jump to their successor. If the authors of WX Python came up with a new library, if you will, then I would go there. Because obviously they wanted to create a new one for a reason. All right, libavg. Okay, good. Video's great. Take you. Okay, I'm just looking at my comments here. Did the comments show up here? I don't know. All right, let's go back. What is this? libavg, written C++ by Ulrich von Zadow, excuse me. The open source libavg GUI framework uses Python as a scripting language of choice and serves as one of the best frameworks for developing user interfaces for modern touch-based devices. So there you go. Python could be used to create touch-based devices as well. The graphics-intensive side of things, such as video decoding, visual effects, compositing, are all handled by the hardware acceleration achieved via OpenGL and GPU shaders to deliver smooth and graphic-rich visuals. That's very cool. libavg supports a majority of commonly used touch drivers and offers a range of features such as camera support, text alignment, animation support, GPU effects like blur, shadows, and much more. There's also an advanced screen layout engine that offers rotating, scaling, cropping, blending modes, and other manipulation techniques for visual elements. Being built with C++ ensures incredibly fast execution time. Developers who want the absolute best performance out of their application will not be disappointed with libavg. You can find the installation instructions on their website's download page. Simple Gui, there's another one. Isn't the name of this framework a dead giveaway of what it is meant to do? Getting back to the topic, those starting fresh with Python application development may find a lot of Python GUI frameworks daunting at first. Mike B created PySimple GUI in 2018 to make it easier for Python newbies to get into GUI development without spending too much time getting into the intricacies of more advanced GUI development options available. Iced coffee. By Simple Gui takes 4 of the widely popular Python GUI frameworks, which includes Qt, tkinter, wxPython, and Remy, and turns down their difficulty a few notches by implementing most of the boilerplate code. Result: beginners get the option to pick the GUI framework of their choice, along with easy access to various visual elements that come with it to create intuitive user interfaces without diving deep into the frameworks. This doesn't mean seasoned developers only get access to the simplified versions of their favorite frameworks. The option to get full native functionality still exists. So that, by the way, where he creates, let me just comment on this quickly. So that author created a layer on top of other GUI frameworks. That layer is called a facade. It's a design pattern that's commonly used in software development. Facade is basically creating a layer of code that accesses more complex code under the hood, under that layer, to make it easier to work with stuff under that layer. So that's an example of facade. I figure throwing some design patterns for you guys there. PyForms. PyForms GUI framework. The PyForms GUI framework is a Python software layer at its core for the widely famous Windows forms, which allows developers to create some amazing and highly interactive user interfaces. PyForms cross-platform capabilities make it easier for developers to create applications for multiple platforms with little changes to the code, eliminating unnecessary slowdowns. PyForms provides instances of several popular graphics-centric libraries such as PyQt, OpenGL, and more to help developers create user interfaces for their applications. So as we can see, we have a lot of options here. The PyForm library is split into 3 different sections that include PyForms GUI, PyForms Web, and PyForms Terminal. Each of these layers allows the execution of the PyForms application in Web, Terminal, and Windows GUI. With a focus on modularity, PyForms becomes perfect for quickly creating prototypes and can make short work of the maintenance at later stages of the application. Installation is handled with the command pip install PyForms. Pretty simple, which adds all 3 libraries, or if you want to use libraries individually, that's possible as well. So there you go. We're making some progress here. Wax. Remember the framework called wxPython that we discussed a few pointers ago? Just like wxPython was a wrapper for wx widgets GUI toolkit, the Wax GUI framework is a more developer-friendly wrapper for wxPython. Like other popular frameworks, Wax is also implemented as an extension module for Python. And for those wondering, yes, Wax supports building cross-platform applications. All right, let's go on. PySide 2. PySide 2 is built by the same company that gave us the wildly popular application development framework Qt. Upon looking closely, you'll come across the term Qt for Python project, which is nothing but the task of porting PySide to support Qt5, whereas the framework itself is now being called PySide 2. It is now being dubbed as the official cross-platform Python module for Qt for Python project. The project provides Python developers access to a proven collection of tools and libraries for fast and flexible creation of amazing user interface tools that the Qt5 and the above has to offer. PySide 2 also offers community support for the developers who are looking for it. PySide 2's documentation section has been divided into areas like tutorials, video guides, examples, API docs, and more to extensively cover a variety of topics included in the framework. AMD's Radeon control software, cockpit entertainment solution for Mercedes TomTom's navigation are just some high-tech and modern examples of running Qt. So there you go. Wow. So you see Python by-side 2 being implemented in real-world examples that are pretty substantial there. That's good stuff. PyGui. How are we doing here? We're on number 10, PyGui. That's the last one. Okay, we'll do number 10. PyGui, developed by Gregory Ewing. PyGui project, or PyGui, Python GUI project, or the PyGui framework is more commonly known, is a simple API that enables developers to create user interfaces using native elements for Python applications. Being a fairly lightweight API, the PyGui framework adds very little additional code between the Python application and the target platform. PyGui currently supports creating applications for Unix, Windows, and Mac OS. To make application development even easier for developers, the documentation for the entire library is in Python, eliminating the need to refer to other GUI libraries. PyGui is available for Python 2 and 3, and well, Python 2. I wouldn't use Python 2 for anything these days, but anyway. It does come with support for extensions that let you use OpenGL and GTK. Conclusion, now that we have a wide array of GUI frameworks in Python, such as tkinter, Kiwi, PyForms, and more, that are designed to supercharge building user interfaces that people will love to use. We hope that this list will put an end to the year search for the best Python GUI frameworks, or at least it will shorten it to some extent. What are your thoughts on Python? What are your thoughts on Python frameworks for building your GUI? Building GUI, what framework to use? We're eager to hear from you. All right, so that's not a bad article. Give you a nice overview of what you have available out there. Again, this was on Towards Data Science, so I give him credit. Claire DaCosta. Not bad. So I hope you found this interesting. And there you go. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into a little Q&A. And yeah, we'll end it off. How are we doing for time now? Okay. We'll do 10 minutes of Q&A. So, let's see what we got here. Good morning, good morning. I probably just learned the top 2 only and learn any others as required. Yeah, again, like any tech, I could tell people over again. There's so much technology out there, but there's no developer in the world that knows more than 1% of what's out there, if that. And even highly experienced Python developers, they're probably going to know 1 or 2 GUI kits at best, and maybe part of them. So don't let all these options overwhelm you. It's just the nature of programming. There's tons of stuff out there. There's tons of stuff to consider. All right, what do we got here? Do you mean so yeah. I just put that up. He said there's a conversation going on. I can see that the majority of these libs are C++ libs wrappers for Python. Yeah, Python is not the fastest program. So the way, like I've seen it, the way people use Python, especially in areas where they need high performance, they'll write the core engine in C++ and then they'll implement a layer in Python so that you can access all this stuff in Python. That's the smart way of doing it. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why when people say, should I learn this language? Should I learn that language? Should I learn this language? At the end of the day, when you're a professional developer, you're going to be using more than one language at any given moment, that's for sure. And as you know, if you learn one language, then the rest come much easier. So try not to get too caught up in that. What is the best scripting language? There you go. It depends on what you're doing, right? It depends what you're doing. Hi, Stefan, Python lover from Argentina. How do you see the future of Python in web dev? You know what? It's not going to go anywhere, meaning it's not going to disappear, so don't worry about that. And I think because Python has become so popular in data sciences and so forth, that will probably boost its adoption for web application development. I would probably boost it simply because people like Python. So if they build something with Python, they need to build a web app, they'll probably be inclined to want to do it in Python. All right, so what else we got? Is it possible to develop professional software with just tkinter? That's a good question. I don't see why not. I've only dabbled in TK Inter. I'm not, in my career as a developer, I was not really big into developing thick clients, basically writing software that weren't web apps. When I wrote GUIs, I did it with web apps. So I know, I teach a little bit of basics of TK Inter, but it's, as you can see, they gave a couple examples where some pretty professional projects were built with Python GUI tools. So I would be very confident to look at it. Why is JavaScript so damn hard to learn? Laugh out loud. It's a good question. JavaScript is harder to learn because it's inconsistent. It's not a consistent language. It's a weird language. Things like operator overloading, so it comes to mind. And it's actually not a true object-oriented language. It's a prototype-based language, prototypical-based language. So it's kind of object-oriented, but it's not really. It's a weird thing. It's a weird beast. So though Python is not strongly typed, meaning you don't have to worry about declaring your data types and so on, which makes it easy in a sense. On the other hand, it makes it harder because it will change types on the fly. For example, if you add a string to an int, it will turn it into a string. Whereas if you did that in Java, you'd get an error. So you can have these little insidious little bugs creep into JavaScript code that you don't get with strongly typed languages like C# and Java, at least not as easily. And again, because JavaScript is weird that way, it's very loosey-goosey, it can make it a little bit more difficult to understand. But just keep writing the code, it will come to you. Okay. Python GUI is used for letting end users customize and set up the automation scripts more easily. That's true. That's true. JS is hard because it has no garde-fou. Michel Petitfray. Hello, Stefan. I am currently working on the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What should I learn next? I'm mainly used to writing Java code. I would start building real things, dude. If you know Java and once you get comfortable with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I would start building stuff. Like, it's time to get out of your tutorials and start actually building stuff. Make some money, man. I use TK Inter to build a transaction scaling tool to make sure budgets match the bank accounts. Very useful. There you go. There you go. All right, so I'm getting a warning that the stream quality may diminish due to bandwidth issues. So my apologies. All right, what's this? Nim. What do you think the future of Vue will be? I think it's going to be one of the prominent three. Well, it already is. Will it be more popular in Angular, JS, and React? Ooh. I think that in terms of broader application, it will surpass Angular if it hasn't already. React, it's hard to say. It depends what React does. That's hard to say. But as long as if you know one of them, you basically can learn the other ones pretty easy. For Studio Web, do you spawn a VPS per client, or is it a one VPS to rule them all? One VPS. We scale on the server side if need be. Haven't had to. We can do it dynamically. So we have a hybrid. We have a VPS-based server hosting, and so we can just go and up our RAM, up our disk space, etc. But we're provided by the company simple user interface. So if we want to add things, make changes, and so on. We haven't needed to go beyond that in terms of complexity. It's built on PHP 7, which is very, very fast, very, very, very RAM efficient, and we've had huge numbers of users on there, and it doesn't even come close now with the new version, Studio Web 5. It doesn't even come close to tasking the server, not even close. Whereas the old version of Studio Web, we had huge problems with scaling, huge problems. We'd get all our schools coming on, the whole thing would start to tank. It was a real disaster. So that's why after several years, we rewrote and redesigned Studio Web from scratch. I had to reduce video quality on my end because your stream froze on me. Yeah, that's it. I got that warning. Depends on bandwidth issues. Sorry about that. Do you have a recommended UI framework? No, I do not. I am not a Python GUI framework guy. Couldn't say. But I think once you learn one, to jump around wouldn't be a big deal. I would just play around with them, see what you like, and do a little research in terms of what what each GUI framework is better at. Yeah. What's it? How do you deal with breakup? Are you talking about relationships? Or you let me know, Dominic. Satara, hey, ha, I'm free. Exams are done, and now I come to all your lives. Well, thanks. Congratulations on getting all your exams done, by the way. That's cool. Thanks for watching the lives. COVID times, more lives. Hi, Stefan. What's the non-technical skill you wished you learned before your 40s, 129 years ago? I would say I wish I would have worked on my communication skills a little bit more early on. I was a little bit too rough with people in that regard. So better communication skills, perhaps. Yeah. What's this? The camera focus and blur looks amazing. Thanks. It better be. This thing cost me a fortune. How to deal with the ex-girlfriend. I would move on, dude. I would move on. Don't chase. If it doesn't work out, there's many fish in the sea, both girls, guys, for both sides. I would move on. Don't get caught up with it. I know it can be difficult, but the way you make it less difficult is just go on dates. Just go on dates, because then you start realizing there's other options and other opportunities. But if you sort of stay isolated, you start to wallow and you start to think about it, and you go into this feedback loop, like an endless cycle, and you don't want to be there. So I would suggest just go on dates. Even if you have, it's just for dating purposes. And with every date, every new girl you go on a date with, the sting is going to diminish with regards to the ex. And then eventually you'll be like, you're fine. That's my suggestion to you. I work at a corp as an analyst, mostly reporting, who would like to get into development. Would a Java bootcamp be worthwhile? I use Python for personal projects, but want to work in enterprise. I don't know. If you know Python, why don't you just try learning, instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars at a Java bootcamp, why don't you try learning Java on your own? Shouldn't be that difficult for you, Yeah. Satara says, 100% communication skills. Agreed. Learning how to get into a state of flow. For me, the second my big headphones are on, I get into work mode. There you go. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, communication skills, that's something I really emphasize these days. Who needs a girl when you can be with a fish? Yeah, you want to get yourself a red arowana or a gold arowana. Any Asian audience members will know what I'm talking about there. Red or super red arowana. That's the ticket. Would love to see Visual Studio WinForms and Python come together as one. My students love the ease of using VS WinForms for creating GUI. Yeah. Windows and Microsoft, they're king at that kind of stuff. Like in terms of front end and GUI and stuff, they're king. Java never had a chance against them. All right, let's see what Misc Gaming has to say. Hey, Stefan, I'm being promoted to a project manager in my company. Congratulations. Fantastic. Cool. How much value does a project manager that knows how to code possess compared to a project manager that doesn't know how to code? Thanks. It's very important. The more you know about coding, the more you'll be able to communicate with your developers, and they'll respect you more. They'll respect you more. So, do you know how to code? I don't know. You haven't specified whether or not you know how to code. If you don't know how to code, I would suggest at least learning the basics so you can speak nerd with your developers. That's my suggestion for you. No worries. Don't worry, dude. You'll come through it on the other end. Like I said, just state. Don't worry about it. That's part of the process, you know. It happens to everybody. Hold on a second. What's going on here? You talk about how expensive your mic was, but let me tell you, I've seen a lot of vlogs, and your mic is worth every penny to the viewer second. I've seen a lot of vlogs. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of my goals. Like, whenever I approach anything, I try to improve what I do a little bit every day. It's just a part of, I got this from my martial art practice, my Kung Fu. Kung Fu means diligent practice, loosely translated as far as I understand. Kung Fu, with a K, means diligent practice on a regular basis to improve your skills. So Kung Fu could be applied to martial arts, could be applied to coding, could be applied to cooking, could be applied to doing videos. So for me, I'm always trying to improve. So thanks for letting me know. This mic is actually not super expensive. My other mics were super expensive. This one was actually pretty good. You know, there's a big, there's this law of diminishing returns where you spend money to get improved quality in things, but the law of diminishing returns teaches you that soon enough, the more money you spend, the less of a benefit you get. So if you go from a $500 video camera to a $5,000 video camera, you get a big increase in quality. But when you go from a $5,000 video camera to a $10,000 video camera, the increase in quality is marginal. So it's like, this is the quality line, this is the price line. So as you go up in price, quality goes up just a little bit. Same thing with very nice sports cars, by the way. And you know, you have like $100,000 car. It's not twice as good as a $50,000 car. It's maybe 30% better. And 200, I've been in, like a good friend of mine has a Lamborghini. Well, he's a friend of mine. He has a Lamborghini and he has a Ferrari. And they're very expensive, but it's like, it's really marginally better, if at all, than the typical $100,000 luxury car, in my opinion. So, yeah. Anyway, law of diminishing returns. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Naz. I just got a job offer after finishing school, and they are mainly using Microsoft Blazor, .NET, and C#. Is that a good start? That's a fantastic start. Congratulations. Good job. Take it. Do good work. Can I find a job just with Python? Yeah. I have a friend of mine, he worked at an animation studio, and he was looking around for months trying to find Python scripters, not even programmers per se, just scripters they had all this Python code running around to manage their rendering farms. There we go. How are we doing for time? Okay, we'll be ending off soon. Quick question. If one keeps getting rejected even from junior jobs due to lack of experience, should I then try freelancing? How would that work? All right. No problem. First of all, I got a feeling you might be needing to work on some of your communication skills. So you might want to look at that, how you write, how you talk, etc. Make sure you show up well-dressed, etc. Yes, definitely do some freelancing. Because when you can show a portfolio of real-world work, working with people, not tutorials, but working with real people, even little clients, that goes a long way. Like for me, as somebody who hires developers, I want to see real-world work more than anything else. So yeah, do that for sure. Who knows? You may find that you prefer being a freelancer. The nature of freelancing is at first it's a little slow because you don't know when you're going to get the next contract and you got to learn the game, etc. But once you get it going, you end up making a lot more money and you have a lot more freedom. So it depends on your personality, you know. What technologies do you use to handle printable reports, invoices, and whatnot? PDF. Assembly is best coding language to interview in. I had a good friend of mine who, amazing programmer, worked at Apple amongst other big, Microsoft, big hitter. And he knew assembly well. And he took it off his resume because he kept getting hired for assembly jobs and he hated coding in assembly. So he said, I got to take it off my resume. People keep wanting me to do assembly. I don't want to do assembly. You'd want to code in C++ or Java or C#, but not, or Ruby even. But he hated assembly, so he took it off his resume. Oh, I know how to code. Haha. Okay, good. So there, fantastic. Yeah, knowing how to code is important so that you can communicate. That's fantastic. Etc. To all the guys asking about girl problems, here we go. Focus on yourself. Good advice. Better yourself and your life, and you'll forget the ex. She was meant to go anyway, and a better person will come. Focus on you. Fantastic advice, etc. I can concur. Very much so. Yeah, because you make yourself a better you, you're going to attract all kinds of people to you. Right? All right, I think that's a good way to end. Okay, I'll do it to 50 minutes. We'll see what else. But that's a great, I like this comment. Comment of the night. There we go. What do we got going on? Okay. Let's answer a few more. We'll do a quick round here. What is the minimum amount of skills you need to get into WordPress development? Be able to install it, understand what themes are, understand the basics of theming. So you need to know HTML5, a little bit of CSS, a touch of JavaScript and PHP, because of course WordPress is PHP based. And there you go, Bob's your uncle. You'll be ready to go. Jump in. A lot of development in the first few years. You're learning anyway on the job. Might as well get paid. There are 2 ways to write error-free program. Only the third one works. Leonard has to say, hey, Stefan, thanks for your work. Is GitHub important for projects with many developers? Yeah, for sure. Source control is very important, so you don't step on each other's toes. I'm just studying about C++. My friend told me that Java is better than C++. How to approach the program? May I know how is your opinion? Depends on the type of software you're writing. If you're writing gaming engines or you need to write very high-performance code, C++ is much better than Java. On the other hand, if you're building web apps, higher level type of business level logic type of stuff, then Java is much better. Your friend is he's looking at C++ versus Java from a beginner's point of view, from a very myopic point of view, from his point of view. Depends on the type of code that you're writing. I wouldn't be writing a gaming engine in Java, although you could for certain types of games. So it's all very dependent. It's like saying, to say C++ is better than Java or Python is better than PHP or PHP is better than Ruby. Well, everybody knows Ruby is the worst, but anyway, I'm just kidding about Ruby. No, to say one language is better than the other is like saying that a Jeep is better than a Porsche or a Porsche is better than a Jeep. Depends where you're driving the car, you know? So don't get caught up in that little game. How can you mix muscle memory and learning to code? That's a great question. Type out your code. Like, I look at my keyboard, which is a good keyboard, by the way, Logitech. I don't, like, if you ask me, where's the X keyboard? I wouldn't know. I don't know cognitively, but my lizard brain knows where it is, and it just goes to it, boom, and it goes to X. So that's muscle memory. Muscle memory is lizard brain, by the way. You got 2 brains. You got the cognitive logical brain and you got the lizard brain. Well, it's the same brain, but you got 2 operating systems. Muscle memory is the lizard operating system. So yeah, it's this write code, dude. Okay, a little conversation here. What is it? They don't need to be amazing or in use by anyone, just there to show you what you are doing. All right. Okay, one more. Words of wisdom. Thank you. Let's go on. Which skills do you need to be confident to apply for a junior Python developer job? Is it better to start as a trainee or a junior developer or as a self-trained developer? Learn the basic Python, learn the basics, learn the fundamentals, then do one or two little projects, go to Upwork or whatever site, just do something for free, just to gain some experience working with people. And then from there, you have something to show in your resume, and then you can go in there as a trainee or as a junior developer. And you have to pay your dues a little bit as a developer before you get into it in a paid way, but it comes quick. And again, communication skills are huge. All right, hey Stef, how are you, man? I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. I hope everything is well with you. Can't complain. Robert Callens, the Misc rule of 20 minutes a day is helping me. Good. There's a bit of psychology in that 20-minute rule. Yeah, so my 20-minute rule is like whatever you do 20 minutes of coding a day. Whatever you do. Even if you don't feel like it, you still do it. I'm just going to do my 20 minutes. Why only 20 minutes? Some people say, only 20 minutes? How can you learn to code with only 20 minutes? You learn to code with only 20 minutes because there are days when you don't feel like coding. Just like there's days you don't feel like training when you're supposed to train. So what you do is you have a bare minimum that you're disciplined for. 20 minutes is easy, right? Even if you don't want to do it, your lizard brain is like, I don't want to do this. You say, I'm just doing 20 minutes. And you do your 20 minutes, you sit down, you write the 20 minutes, you do your code. And if you still feel like it's crap, then leave. But you've done your 20 minutes and you push the ball forward. It's important that you have a frequent, steady exposure to the coding so that your brain starts to realize that this is important and you start learning more easily. What often happens when you sit down to do 20 minutes becomes 30 minutes, becomes 40 minutes, etc. But do that 20 minutes a day, but always give yourself at least 2 days off a week. You got to give your brain time to rest and relax. Yeah, you gotta do that. All right. Somebody gave me a tip there, so I appreciate the tip. Okay. All right, 50. Okay, last few questions. I gotta go. I learned Python, built a few small apps for a job. Now learning Django. What should I go next? And 2, where are you from? Okay, good. So you're getting there. You built a few. Did you build up your website? Your resume website, if you will, so you can say, hey, I'm Adrian, check out my site, look what I've done. Make sure the site looks good and it's well written. Learning Django. Let the jobs that are available dictate which way to go. Now you know your fundamentals, it seems. Ready to go, and if the job is in Django, then learn some Django. You may find a job where they want you to do some JavaScript. No worries, you know Python, you can learn JavaScript pretty easily. Learn some JavaScript. But make sure you have that resume website of yours. Can you explain the Misc rule in more detail? Well, I'll have to wait until another lesson because I'm over my 50 minutes now. You're welcome, Harry. I appreciate the super chat, Jonathan. Fantastic. I'm 1/4 of the way to my coffee. It's cool. All right. Another super chat. Hey, reps. Well, that's what it is. Like today, I went to the gym. Fortunately, we have a gym in the complex here. It's private. And let me tell you, I didn't feel like training at all today. Like, no motivation. Tired. But I have a friend of mine, he said, come on, let's go. So I went, and I have this program I do. It's on the phone. It's called 5x5. And I just do my exercises. And I just went through them. Just got them out. I'm glad I did it, because again, I'm pushing the ball forward in terms of my health. But I just did the bare minimum. I got in there, I did my stuff, and out. No marathon time in the gym. So that's basically where I got that Stef rule from. I got it from boxing, in fact. Because when you're boxing and you're trained to box, in a proper MMA gym or a proper boxing gym, not boxercise, but an actual fighter's gym, they'll have the buzzers going off constantly. You know, the 3-minute round and 1 minute off, 1 minute off, depending. And I was taught by my coach, who was a world-class fighter. He said, you know, you follow the bell at all time, meaning when it's time to train, whether you're skipping rope, working a heavy bag, or sparring, or doing the pad work, when the bell rings, you do it. You do it, even if you're tired. And then when the bell stops, equally as important, even if you're feeling good, you take that 1 minute off, right? So you let the pattern dig in, so you become disciplined that way. And so why did he teach that? Because when you're in the ring and it's a real hard fight, you want to have that will built into your lizard brain. And that will is, it's time to fight now. We're fighting until the bell rings, no matter what, how we feel. Same thing with coding. You do your 20 minutes, it really makes a big difference. Are you a freelancer, Stef? I used to be. Now I run a SaaS called Studio Web, and which provides a curriculum and software that schools use in North America and different parts of the world. But I used to freelance. I did that for quite a bit, actually. All right. I think we're good here. 56 minutes, long enough. I hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And yeah, I'll leave you with my typical ASMR Maine boat, Cape Elizabeth Maine boat videos. Quite relaxing. You can breathe slowly and deeply to relax yourself if you're a little bit too anxious these days. Thanks for watching. Ciao, guys.